Hey guys, before we begin the video, I just want to give a quick shout out to a charity that I'm not sponsored by, but I highly recommend. It's called Arab.org, and they have these one-click-a-day things you can do that generate donations for people in need. I've been primarily using it to try and help Palestinians, but they have other clicks related to other broader topics. It's super easy, you don't even need to create an account. You just go to Arab.org, select the topic you want, or all of them, click once, and you're set. You can click once every 24 hours, and it's completely free. So before we watch the rest of this video, or when this video is done, I highly recommend you go over to Arab.org and do so. That's all I wanted to say. Back to the video. Hello, and welcome to Elephant Power Productions. I'm American Elephant, call me Kevin, and this is Kev Talks, a series where I talk about what I want to talk about. As of this recording, Kung Fu Panda 4 had its first trailer released last month, and it has me very excited. Like most people, I adore the trilogy, and a lot of what makes those films special seems to be kept alive and well for this, to be honest, unnecessary but very welcome continuation. Sadly, the Furious 5 are nowhere to be seen for now, but until then, the animation is still breathtaking and wonderful, the environments and action look very promising, the premise makes sense as an evolution of Po's journey after becoming a teacher, and the new additions look really fun too, like Kihei Kwan as a murderous pangolin in a Kung Fu Panda film. Yes! And like the video title says, one of those new additions is, of course, its villain, the Chameleon. So here's why I'm excited about her, what I think they might do with her, and how, if done right, I think she could not only be one of the best DreamWorks villains in recent memory, but possibly become a character that can be used to, and hear me out on this when I get to it, criticize Hollywood.
Halfway.
You'll see what I mean. The first reason I am interested in the Chameleon is pretty obvious. Kung Fu Panda, for me at least, is 3 for 3 on great to phenomenal villains. Tai Lung has always been fantastic, and I'm very happy to see his spike in popularity on the internet lately. Lord Shen, if you ask me, is the greatest DreamWorks villain of all time, no disrespect to Ramses or the Wolf. And Kai is sadly the weakest of the three, but I'd argue it's mostly by default, and he's still a very entertaining, pretty badass, and effective foe in context of the third movie's story, with some amazing animation, a great character design, and a fantastic theme song. Not to mention, all of them are fantastically acted. Ian McShane is iconic. Gary Oldman is pitch perfect. J.K. Simmons? Do I even need to break it down for you, Mark? Anyway, this time Viola Davis is stepping up to bat, and as someone who's really only watched her as Amanda Waller in The Suicide Squad, both the movie and the rough draft, knowing the performance she brought to one of them has me hyped for a new, fantastic, and possibly spine-chilling villain voice in this series.
I'm protecting this country. Everyone stand down.
Miss Waller, I don't—
Stand down! I'm pretty scared.
While audible glimpses of said performance are brief for now, it sounds perfectly sinister and slithery so far. And the animation accompanying that is great. I really enjoy the shape-shifting effects implying off-screen body horror stuff, and the visuals of the scales almost snapping into place along with her disguises having spikes and visible hints of her skin for small variation is pretty cool. This character also seems to have other quite influential powers, both in this beautiful new city location and with resurrecting the goddamn dead, as I'll discuss more shortly. And yes, because I'm me, of course I'm excited to see her shapeshift into an elephant. Loving the blue crazy eyes going on here too. That's most of what we can see in the first trailer, but what about the past villain stuff and other things that have me excited from a writing standpoint? So here's everything we know about this character so far summarized very quickly. She is a shape-shifting sorceress. She's in control of a city's criminal underworld at minimum with an army of what I think are Komodo dragons with exaggerated designs. And she is bringing villains back to steal their kung fu. We also don't know much about her past, but that's expected since the other films' trailers never gave away full backstories for their villain characters either. I suspect that the Chameleon is going to be a very similar case, but I think there's already enough here to infer, guess, and speculate about with the trailer's current content. Firstly, her being in charge of a city like this, or perhaps trying to conquer it, makes me think she will try some shape-shifting trickery to get in power, or already has, despite her minor visual giveaways. And to be fair, with a massive city like this, in a world with no TV or technology to record you, or whatever you say publicly, and then go,
boom! Got you in 4K, Ultra HD, surround sound, 16 gigabytes RAM, HDR, GT4 REX.
Upon any kind of footage review, if you're in a crowd and watching her disguised and speaking from afar, seeing those spikes might be a little difficult, especially depending on the animal you are and your advantages. Next, I want to talk about two lines, starting with this.
Once I possess the kung fu of every master villain, no one will dare question my power.
A statement like this could just be her being confident and cocky, but knowing how these trailers sprinkle in tiny details or leave out key elements of their villains in the past, such as Shen's genocidal history, I wonder if this has a deeper meaning. Going back to how animal species are a big focus of mine, the chameleon sticks out for several reasons. I don't know if you've noticed, but most of the animals in the Kung Fu Panda universe, with some mostly TV-exclusive exceptions, can only be found in Asia or have an Asian subspecies. Since chameleons are primarily African lizards, it's easy to see why this grabs my attention, but then there's her stature. Just look at how small she is in comparison to Tai Lung when undisguised. It makes me wonder if this line and that size will tie into perhaps her entire characterization, both physically and historically. Perhaps she's so knowledgeable on how to lead or control criminals because she grew up in this environment herself. Maybe she was looked down upon for years and grew up with a mindset that stealing was the only way to survive or get ahead, and that translated into who she is now on a more extreme, macabre scale. Because let's be real, even when it comes to spirits of evil people, you have to have a slightly fucked up head and some Dr. Facilier level vibes to resurrect evil spirits in the first place, let alone borderline desecrate literal ghosts for your own personal gain. Kung Fu Panda 4, more like no rest for the wicked. Got him. Anywho, I think said ideas could also tie into the new character of Sen, a criminal fox played by Awkwafina, who so far is not annoying to me or badly designed in my opinion, and seems to be set up as Poe's successor if the film's plot is going where I think it will. Like I just said, she is at least seen or branded as a criminal in this city, so if the chameleon had a similar past, it makes sense to thematically connect these two, especially with her being a subject in her city and other film foes in mind. Tai Lung was molded by Shifu, Shen slaughtered Poe's people, and Kai was a brother in arms to Oogway. Unless they made a Furious 5 focus movie with Boar from that animated special coming back.
He's unstoppable! I am unstoppable! He's invincible! I am invincible! I am bored!
I don't know who else they could keep doing this with. Sen just makes the most sense out of everyone here from what I've seen so far of the story. As for the second line grabbing my attention, it's this.
We're not so different, you and I.
Now, since she literally shapeshifts into Poe right in front of him while this is said, it could just be a fun villainous line, mocking him as she takes his appearance for a fight. By the way, knowing these movies, I'm expecting a glorious kick-my-butt fight that could symbolically represent Poe defeating his desire to hold on to the Dragon Warrior title. Back to Sen though, what if this line is taken out of context for this moment and is instead being said to her in a completely different scene? Trailers do this shit all the time. Hell, the Marvel's final trailer took dialogue from previous movies, chopped it up to make it sound like Nick Fury was talking about that film's villain, and straight up lied about her motivation in the film to make people think she was more connected to Thanos last minute for whatever reason, so I could totally see them pulling that here to hide a story surprise. Especially, again, when we remember that Shen being responsible for the eradication of so many pandas was not in Kung Fu Panda 2's trailers. Speaking of thematic ideas, though, it's time to address a criticism I've seen of the Chameleon so far. I've heard people already highlight how what Chameleon is doing isn't too dissimilar to Kai. While their methods are different visually and in execution, they're still messing with spirits of the dead and taking gold-colored power from them. Plus, other elements in this film seem to be heavily lifted from 2 and 3. A new city location with a lot of people and a private villain army, a story where Poe is advancing in his skills and he has to teach somebody something new as he advances, people he's never met but he attempts to lead, and likely some message about figuring out how to do your own thing instead of just copying others. And in this day and age of disappointing release after disappointing release for many when it comes to all the 10 companies most people think of for movies, the never-ending sea of sucky sequels may not give this film a good look. With all that being said though, the last aspect I want to talk about with my Chameleon hype, though definitely a very big speculative swing, shows why I think this character could be so symbolically important for this film and perhaps other movies. So, let's talk about nostalgia. Nostalgia is a big talking point right now for movies. There's been countless debates about which films use them well, which films use them poorly, which films over-rely on it, which films work it smartly into their narratives, and so on. It doesn't matter if it's a cameo, Easter egg, piece of music, iconography, story beats, characters, repeated lines, you name it. A lot of movies are really focused on nostalgia, and there's an especially popular trend right now of bringing back old casts for one last adventure. Again, with all that stuff in mind, I can totally see why some might be worried that Kung Fu Panda 4 could be a cash grab, or another negative example of that stuff. And the Chameleon is at risk of representing all that in the worst way. After all, she's a shapeshifter taking on appearances of previous villains from past movies. Her first trailer line after laughing is,
Tai Lung, big fan.
in other words, all about a past villain. As some have also pointed out in a recent TV spot, Sen describes her as someone like Po has never faced before, yet, ironically, one of the shapeshifted forms she takes while this is said is the first villain Po ever fought. Personally, I would have said she can be everything or nothing you've ever faced, but let's not stray too far off topic. Her shapeshifting at worst could be another example of a hollow attempt at nostalgia bait with little fleshing out and no good reason to be here other than getting you excited by reminding you of other stories and showing off some admittedly great but hollow visuals. Even stories that do try to flesh this kind of stuff out have gotten very mixed reactions before. But here's the thing. I think to assume a Kung Fu Panda movie would easily fall into that trap by default is stupid. I don't think a Kung Fu Panda movie would tackle this kind of concept just for nostalgic imagery only. That feels very basic and uninspired for this trilogy where sequels are made sparingly and smartly over years at a time. So I'm confident that the Chameleon, story-wise, is going to be more than that, and hopefully, as some have prayed for, I would love to see the resurrected villains interact with each other. Hell, could you imagine a scene where Po's father has to see Lord Shen again? Oh my god, the chills alone that could invoke would be legendary. And speaking of that wonderful meme, I and many others want Tai Lung to get redeemed, because yeah, absolutely. We all know he was groomed into thinking he deserved the Dragon Scroll power he sought, and like Schifferless Productions highlighted in his great video on the first movie, I think this expression, as Shifu apologizes to him, shows that something inside of him wants to change, but other parts of him believe he's gone too far to turn back. In a story where Po is maturing from Dragon Warrior to a spiritual leader, having him help his first villain find inner peace in some sense, be his big final act as the Dragon Warrior before passing on the mantle, could be a beautiful full circle idea. Maybe even Kai can learn to stop knowing only how to take, find redemption, and be bros with Oogway again. I don't think Shen can be redeemed though, and I pray they don't try to. At least, not without, like, a few hundred years of heavy introspection in the spirit realm, give or take. One last thing I also want to mention is that Tai Lung, if you look closely in Kung Fu Panda 3, had his chi taken by Kai. The same goes for multiple other dead masters we never saw zombie forms for, including an elephant, which, funny how that works out. And no, these aren't the same character, but still a fun coincidence. In addition to that meaning Kai and Tai Lung knew each other already and could possibly have a rivalry if they both come back in this shows DreamWorks could have had Tai Lung back last time in some capacity, but didn't. I can't say for certain if they were saving it for this film or just chose to do it without this Easter egg in mind, but either way, bringing back villains like this doesn't just feel like a cheap decision here to me, as it probably would in other franchises. I think, or at least pray, that Kung Fu Panda 4 will do more with this concept than people think it will. Now you might be thinking, okay Kevin, but this video is about the Chameleon. Do you have anything else to say about her? And what did you mean by her having the potential to criticize Hollywood of all things? Well, think about what I've just discussed, and then think back to her. She is a character who summons and steals the visual look of previous villains from the rest of the Kung Fu Panda trilogy. In other words, she's not only using nostalgia and imagery of the past to expand her gain, but is doing it in a way with deadly consequences, and is also morally messed up. Sound familiar? Simply put, the Chameleon has the potential to be a character that can thematically and in a meta sense criticize holding onto or bringing up the past in the wrong ways, and that can tie into this film's story. Again, Po's next step will be elevating from Dragon Warrior to spiritual leader, and if they really want to do another trilogy that focuses on Po and Sen, which as long as they stop at 6 movies like they planned several years ago, I'd be okay with that. Such would likely focus on the layers of being a spiritual leader and how that gets tested, along with just some Dragon Warrior training and adventures. Like I said earlier, Po fighting himself, so to speak, here, could be him symbolically battling his desire to stay Dragon Warrior forever and stop changing. So he has to let go of that and move on. Granted, a good chunk of what I just said does sound a tiny bit similar to what he had to do to find inner peace in the second film, and as stated before, This movie's implied idea of Po figuring out how to teach a new dragon warrior and accept Sen does have a lot in common with the third flick's teacher plot. But in defense of this, doing your own thing is at the heart of every Kung Fu Panda movie's message, really. Kung Fu Panda is all about following your own destiny, and every movie reflects this in its own way. Movie 1 has Shifu accepting he can't train Po like he did the 5, and Po embracing his unconventional methods to his advantage. Movie 2 has Po find inner peace his own way, still through pain like Shifu, but far less comedic and more personal, which leads to him telling Shen that choosing who you want to be now is more important than letting the past define him despite everything. And of course, Movie 3's message is said right out loud.
I'm not trying to turn you into me. I'm trying to turn you into you.
It's more than likely the fourth film will do a similar thing, with at least its criminal characters, and connecting that to returning villains could give us a message of how bad people can change or do good. And that of course would contrast greatly with the Chameleon, since she's a villain who changes physically on the outside to get ahead, going up against heroes who can inspire change or unlock it on the inside. I have a good feeling that's what we're going to get as the main thematic element of this movie, and if so, that's great. Along with Sen, of course, figuring out her own fox-based methods of being the Dragon Warrior, which would be a direct slap in the face to the Chameleon's mindset of taking it to make it with solely relying on others' power. Perhaps her shapeshifting isn't even hers, and it's just a magic crutch she covets. I don't know for sure yet, but here's the bottom line. I adore the Kung Fu Panda movies. They inspired me and did so much for me as a kid, and they continue to inspire me into adulthood. I love watching all of these movies. None of them are a bore, none of them make me upset, none of them have anything in them that I'd call awful or even that bad. None of them have let me down. They're just great times I never get tired of. At least, assuming I don't end up on another international flight where Kung Fu Panda 3 is one of the only movies I can try falling asleep to.
Shay?
No matter what's come before, I'm very excited about this fourth film and its new reptilian villain. You can bet your big fat panda ass I'll be there in the theater day one without question. I don't know how good the Chameleon specifically will be, but since she has a fantastic actress, a wicked scheme going for her, excellent animation, another striking character design, and the potential to give us multiple fantastic story beats, I have a good feeling Kung Fu Panda 4 is about to deliver yet another unforgettable foe next month. Until then, that's gonna do it for today's video. I'm American Elephant, call me Kevin, thanks for stopping by Elephant Power Productions, subscribe if you want more content like this, and I'll see you on the next episode of Kev Talks. Take care, make sure to never stop looking for your own inner peace this year, and Amanlan Lovu to all of you.
I live in a low-income housing environment that goes by the government name of Section 8. Me and a group of my allies control certain areas of this section in order to run our illegitimate business. We possess unregistered firearms, stolen vehicles, mind-altering inhibitors, and only use cash for financial purchases. If anyone would like to settle unfinished altercations, I will be more than happy to release my address. I would like to warn you, I am a very dangerous person, and I regularly disobey the law.
Chicken wings. Skadoosh.